Good evening, all. My name is Lori Oristano James, and I'm the president of the Monticello Central School District Board of Education. Welcome to our general portion of our meeting from this evening. I'd like to welcome all of you and first remind everybody that you are being recorded. So there is, this meeting is being recorded and will be live on our YouTube as well. Our clerk is not with us this evening, so if there are any questions that do come up for public comment time period, if you would be so kind to just please send them to our clerk, which is jmontes, J-M-O-N-T-E-S @k12mcsd.net. Again, that is J-M-O-N-T-E-S @k12mcsd.net. And she will make sure that we get your questions answered and that the information is put up as per our protocol of public comments so that everybody will be able to see it. We apologize, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, she's unable to attend our meeting this evening, so therefore is unable to communicate back to me. Ms. Sharoff is on her way in to this meeting, so I just got the notification, so she's popping on. At this time, I'd like to ask everybody to please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd also like to remind everybody to please silence their electronic devices except for the one they're currently using so that they're in this meeting. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to move the agenda to the table made by Mr. Groden, seconded by Ms. Greco. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Thank you very much. Dr. Evans, any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
There are none at this time, Madam President.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for an adoption of the agenda as is made by Mr. Groden, seconded by Ms. Sharoff. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. I apologize. I actually have one of those hanging on the phones and I can't mute those. So it's just, in all this time, we haven't had the issue, but I do apologize. Moving on from there, we do have next on the agenda an approval for the minutes, but what I'm going to ask is for somebody to make a motion to table the minutes. There's two corrections and Ms. Montez was unable to make those corrections prior to this meeting. So made by Ms. Greco, seconded by Ms. Holmes. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Ms. Cologne, would you please unmute yourself and give us a student board member update?
So there's a lot of updates and a lot of great things happening. The biggest thing that's happening right now is that we have bought Zoom, which allows students to now use it as a platform. It allows us to have better breakout rooms, which is really exciting. And we have made sure that we have hired Miss Estep for support with parents and students in learning this new platform, because it is going to be a little process to get used to something new again, but we're taking as many precautionary measures as possible. We are increasing after-school activities even more. The drama, the musical, Monty Idol, and a virtual winter concert has all been approved, along with the continuation of workouts and winter sports signups opening. Triumph, Journalism Club, Writers Club, and Today's Students, Tomorrow's Teachers are all opening, and all of the students have access to this information on a Teams made by Miss Calora, one of our amazing English teachers. It's just a bulletin board for all of our everything, and we're going to try to improve that with push notifications so students know when exactly something is posted and never miss a beat. Our 6th year Tinsel Trot is coming up, which is very exciting, along with our Monticello's free community Thanksgiving dinner, which is this upcoming Friday. I think it's November 21st, right in our community, which is great. You can have pickup or a dine-in. It's trying to be as safe as possible. Masks are worn at all time. So that's also happening in our community. Mini bikes are still being used in our school. We are still traveling for gym classes and music classes. It's not obligated, but it's just a way to connect students with teachers. We have finally completed our first marking period, and that's like a big relief for a lot of our teachers, a lot of our students. Moving forward, like I said, we do want to promote more connection with students and teachers and have students have their cameras on. And with that, we have also bought adapters for computers. So teachers a lot of teachers will have 2 monitors. So they will be able to see their students, interact with their students, make sure everyone's engaged, and also share their screen and show the students what they're using, which will be great. There is a pandemic planning committee that I am on, and we're really trying to tackle time management for students, which is fantastic. We're just trying to figure out what'll help the social and emotional health of all of our students and keep moving forward. So I think that's all, but overall, we're really moving in a great direction for not only our school, but our community as a whole.
Thank you, Kayla. Does anyone have any questions for Kayla? Okay, I do want to just bring one thing forward, Kayla, to the board. If there is anybody who would like to make a donation to this year's food drive, please issue your check made out to Monticello High School Food Drive and somehow get it to the office, and they will make sure that it goes to, that it gets to Mrs. Calora, who will then be able to utilize those funds. The food drive got a late start because of situations, with the pandemic. So with that said, anything is very, very helpful with regard to that. And while I'm on that, the Rotary Club of Monticello is doing their food drive as well for community pickup, and know that they are working in conjunction with Julian Dawson from United Way and with Kathy Kreider from Federation for the Homeless to make sure that everybody who is in need gets. So if there's anybody listening to this who is not able to financially support the school but would like to drop off food items that will go to those locations as well, we will be at the Teddy Strobel building from 9 until 1 on this Saturday for the food drive. So to get the check via to Kayla, you're sending it to the high school, made out Monticello High School Food Drive. And that money will go for the students to do the shopping that they do for the dinner baskets. And then the other food drive will go to supplement the actual food pantries. And we thank the Interacts for also working with us to get that done. So thank you, Kayla. We appreciate it. So send Kayla money. And if not, get us some food. So canned goods, non-perishables, or do both if you can. There's much need in our community, as there are in many. So thank you so much. Moving on from there. Mr. Crumley?
I would like to make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as a group, F1 through M2.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that? Sorry, second, made by Mr. Groden. Any questions? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Moving on from there, board roundtable. Does anyone have anything for board roundtable they'd like to share out? Ms. Greco. You've got to unmute. You want me to unmute you? There you go. Still can't hear you. Not hearing you. So if you want to try to call in also, and we'll get you so that you're on both, and then I'll come back to you. How's that? Okay, so anyone else have anything that they'd like to report out for board roundtable? Okay, I do have a few, yes, Mr. Crumley.
Pretty quick, me and my wife attended the RJK parent teacher conference through the Teams app. Everything went really well with that. The teachers seem to be dealing with the pandemic and the virtual learning pretty well, kind of overcoming the obstacles now that the first marking period's over, like Ms. Cologne had said. So, once again, thanks to all the teachers and all the hard work they're putting in to keep everyone moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Greco, if you cannot get it to go through on the call, text me and I'll read it into record. Okay, Ms. Jersey.
Just to piggyback on Tim's middle school parent-teacher conference, if we could actually maybe next year think about doing an additional evening, because there's a lot of like 2 hours for the parent-teacher conference, and I know I called to make an appointment and it was all filled up. So if we could maybe think about that, doing that next year, because I know some parents just can't do it during the day.
Yeah, that was something that I know was brought to the administrator's attention. It was a little bit different this year. It has not been an issue. You muted the other one. We're good. So it was not an issue in the past. What created the issue was how they got signups, because they did it virtually instead of live and in person the night of. So that's what created the problem. So there was the communication was not clear that no matter what time, it doesn't have to be on those two half days. They will set up meetings with parents. So if you did not get an appointment, make sure that you make a phone call, and they do want to speak. They will set up a meeting with you, even if it's not within that time slot, which they would normally do in person, but it was all remote. So we were set there. Adriana, you want to go, and then I'll go to Ms. Weiner?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, myself and several people on the board got to attend the Bridging the Equity Divide Through Board Policy webinar, which I found to be very moving and informational. And I think it'll be, as we've really been working hard toward making our district and our policies more equitable, inclusive, and then how those things then turn into diversity on all different levels and types. So I thought it was really, really cool to hear about what other districts are doing, getting advice, and then just also providing a level of knowledge and leadership and how we can make our policies more inclusive and equitable. So I thought it was very cool.
Thank you. Ms. Weiner.
I just wanted to piggyback off of Helen. I had issues with the middle school also, but I have to say that the teachers went above and beyond to make accommodations to do the parent teaching conference, virtual conference with me. They were wonderful. The high school, I experienced the same thing in the high school where the teachers that I needed to see were already booked by the time I get in there, and every one of them went out of their way to do it. I had one today. I had one even before the teacher conferences. They were amazing. And just from talking to everyone and putting a face to it, these teachers that I spoke with are going so above and beyond and are working so hard through this pandemic. I just want to, my hat is off to them. You know, it's hard enough being a teacher and then being a teacher under this environment and these circumstances. And I just want to say my experience at both the middle school and the high school parent-teacher conferences was absolutely wonderful. I enjoyed meeting with the teachers, and everything about it went wonderful on my end. And I just wanted to put that out there.
Yes, thank you for stating that. That's why I said if there are anyone who's within listening earshot who did not get a meeting at either of the buildings because of that, it's something that in person they would have said, don't worry, we'll fit you in somewhere else. What else works for you? And because it was virtual, the evening meeting was virtual, where most people do sign up and get that opportunity. That communique did not go necessarily out. So please make sure that you're calling the guidance offices and they will help set those up for you. And we thank our teachers for everything, or teachers and our entire staff for everything that they're doing throughout this pandemic. And I, as a retired 35 years plus the 2 extra years post-retirement doing stuff, I cannot say enough for what they're doing, because it's amazing. It really is. So I did attend a few things. I was at the Cornell Cooperative Extension Annual Meeting and Awards Ceremony last night with Dr. Evans, and it was nice because our district was recognized for its work in establishing the St. John Street Hub. So it's nice to know that that building is being utilized. It's a beloved building, but it's got, as a WPA building, you know, they don't make them like they used to. And to know that we have use for that building and utilization for that building for things that are needed in our community, for learning from birth until senior citizen, because they don't like when I say death, but but knowing that is really good, because that follows up with our mission that we educate well beyond what our regular traditional classroom guidelines are, if you will. So I did attend that. I agree with Adriana. I was at the Bridging the Equity Divide through board policy. I not only found it informative, first of all, Dr. Robinson Oliver, he's amazing. He's just an amazing individual. If you ever get a chance to see any of the workshops and things that he does, I've worked with him closely through Nicaea, because he is actually outside where we always meet. So he's just outside in that school district. So we call on him quite a bit. But one of the most intriguing things, or one of the most informative things, I should say, that leads on to what Ms. Greco was saying, is he made very clear that there's a misunderstanding when you utilize the word of equity. And you talk about the word of equity because you think just about what politically is going on right now. And he made clear that that's only one tiny piece of it, that there's so much broader. And so I'm glad that that Ms. Greco and I heard the same things from totally different rooms and didn't talk about it, but that he made so clear. And it's been something that this board for a very long time, in looking at its policies, you know, Mrs. Sheriff has been on the policy committee for many, many years. And, you know, looking at the verbiage in such a way that we are talking about inclusivity of all, and that that's what you look at. You know, we have issues in our district that are gender related, that are class, social, you know, social economics, learning. But my favorite thing that I've heard Dr. Robinson say over and over and over again, which I just want to drive home to the board again, is that, and to anyone who's listening, is that our obligation as educators is to take the child from when they come to us, no matter what their background is, and bring them forward. And that's where the diversity is. Would you agree with that, Ms. Greco? Am I paraphrasing him correctly? Okay, good. So I found that really a wonderful session to sit through, and we are starting to change over our policies. We will be doing a first read tonight of some of them and moving on from there. Ms. Sheriff, go ahead.
One of the points he made that really was driven home to me is that if you're thinking in terms of equity, it's far from a one and done. It needs to permeate your thinking, your outlook. It needs to permeate every decision, every hire, because that is what will truly make the change in the long run. Yes,
I agree. And the other thing that I really, really liked with regard to, you know, in what you're saying with regard to it is not only permeate, but the understanding that I lost my train of thought. Let it go. It'll come back to me. I'm of that age. The permeate, it'll come back to me. But he was wonderful, and we can have access to that again, you know, because it's been televised. So I recommend to board members that you that we make sure that you get the link if you want to see how, how the presentation went. It was extremely informative. So moving on from there, I also had, I attended the Sullivan County Chamber of Commerce Pride Awards ceremony, in which Monticello Central School District was honored as part of Operation Feed for its work in helping to provide food to families and to our students during the pandemic. So we were recognized for 2 wonderful awards by our community. And it's nice to know that people are realizing the work that we're doing, because that is important. And see, I knew it would come back to me, Mr. Sharaff. You see, I just needed to say the word works, and it came back to me that the one thing that, going back to bridging the equity divide through board policy, the one thing that that Dr. Robinson wanted us to understand is that it's tough dialogue and it's hard work, and it doesn't take place overnight. So as long as we think of the broader spectrum of it, this board has committed through our goals in saying, well before any of these political things happened, this board was talking the talk and making the commitments in hiring our new superintendent and making sure that that was the direction we were heading in. And we are well on our path based upon what I heard in what they were saying, because we are having those conversations. So kudos to us, two nice recognitions and awards. That doesn't fall on us as a board. When I say us, I mean collectively, the faculty, staff, parents, students, and community of the Monticello Central School District. You're what makes that happen. So we are seeing some wonderful things. Thank you. So moving on from there, we have the reports out from our directors. Does anyone have any questions regarding any of those reports? Okay. Policy committee memo. So I do want to let you know that there was a portion of there was a request made of the collaborative equity work group, which is starting to look at all of these components of what we were just talking about in our policy, and they needed board members. So I, as board president, sit on any committee within the district. So I will be serving on that. But knowing the answer needed a fast turnaround time, I reached out to Mr. Crumley as the vice president, and we had a dialogue around if it's part of policy and where we need to go with this. And we reached out to Ms. Sharaff, who's got the history of where we've started from and where we're going toward. And there were many other board members we discussed, but just so you know, there's 2 of us that are retired. And therefore have the time and the commitment, because it's about 20 hours worth of additional meeting time that has to be done. So Mrs. Sharaff graciously accepted, and we'll be working on that, and we'll be reporting out as well of those meetings. So with that said, policy committee memo dealt with the 3 areas: the library material selections, the recruitment and hiring, and professional development. It's our first read tonight. It'll come to the board at the next meeting for its final approval, second read and adoption. Is there anybody board-wise that has anything that they would like to add based upon what they've read? Has any feedback? We still have time for feedback. Anything on it, on the updates? Okay, Dr. Evans, there is one thing that I did notice in the read. And again, it's small things. It's a thing that Ms. Sharaff would like to go, yep, it's a verbiage thing. So we call things professional development. In the paperwork that we're getting advice from NYSBA policy, they are calling it sometimes professional development and sometimes professional learning. So I think we need to establish that we're either calling it professional learning in the title, in the document, or call it professional development. And they make the distinction in the verbiage between academia professional learning or staff professional development. And I don't necessarily believe that there is a difference between the 2. We are developing our professional prowess, and it's through learning. So I think that we should just uniform it all and say professional development in the policy. So.
Thank you. And I would just, before we make revisions like that, NYSBA does have a note in there where it talks about their rationale behind it, which is to make it consistent and aligned with the new commissioner's regulations or recent commissioner's regulations around professional learning and staff development. So, we can do whatever. We can, mark this up and use whatever verbiage we want to, so long as, I guess what we're doing is consistent with those regulations. I think what NYSBA's done here is kind of make the policy explicitly aligned with those regulations, but whatever the board's purview is here, I'd be happy to mark it up accordingly.
Yeah, my bigger concern is the lingo going to change amongst those in our buildings? Or are we still going to refer to things as professional development, even though it's learning? It's just adding, again, yet another alphabet soup on per se, and what we talk about is professional development. So that I leave that to the board. It was just something that I noticed. So we can discuss more. If you have any opinion on that, please let us know so we know if we should be changing that or not. Anyone have anything to say with regard to that? Okay, so no correspondence outcomes, capital project update, Dr. Evans?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Oristano James. So a couple things here with our capital project update. There were some questions about the train contract that was negotiated, and our legal counsel has provided the board with the answers to that. That contract is being recommended not only by me, but also our legal counsel and our architects, Clark Patterson Lee. So that is being brought to you for your action tonight. And also a change order. This change order is in regards to the waste drain pipes in the high school from the old science labs. You'll recall Chris Ladanier of CPL presented the glass pipings that were unearthed in the excavation that prior to that excavation were not known to be there. And back in 1960 something, when they designed that building, the intention was that people would be dumping all sorts of acid and other chemicals down those drains. So they wanted something underground that would be able to stomach it. Those are no longer used today, and it is in disrepair in many places, and that needs to be fixed. So that is the nature of that change order. And relative to our transportation center, they have begun work on the pouring the foundation, excavating out for the foundation, building the forms, and they're hoping to start pouring that this month or early December. And then in December, we'll start seeing pieces of the structure being brought in and erected. There was a slight delay with those building materials because you may recall that there was a fire at a manufacturer's facility that forced us to change vendors to procure those structures. So that is why those have been temporarily delayed. So if one drives by there, they will see a lot of work going on at that site at this time, as well as what's going on in the high school. So that's the capital project update.
And we are on time currently with that for everything to be set, right?
Yeah, we've had a few minor delays and setbacks, but it's still along the timeline of completion by next summer or into the fall, depending on the calendar that's already been shared with the board. So there's no changes to that. Ms. Vela, Mr. Lewis, and I have another owners meeting next Wednesday. So we'll get another update then.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Evans. Any questions from anybody? Okay, moving on from there. Path forward, Dr. Evans.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Oristano James. So as most of you will know, we had temporarily closed Cook for in-person learning, so it was remote learning only. We did that last week out of an abundance of caution because we had one verified COVID positive staff member and another symptomatic staff member who had a number of contacts. And that timeline of exposure without knowing how that COVID test would have turned out, it could have caused a lot of spread if that individual was indeed COVID positive. The staff member was not COVID positive. We found that out late last week. So we reopened Cook on Monday. It was nice to be around the building today and see kids and staff back for in-person instruction. I think, not to comment on the obvious, but numbers everywhere are increasing, and that includes Sullivan County. We shared a press release from the director of Sullivan County Public Health, Nancy McGraw, that explained how the numbers are increasing. And as we track the data, what I'm noticing is, yes, indeed, the number of COVID cases are increasing in Sullivan County. However, also are increasing is the number of tests administered. However, yesterday there was quite a spike in the positivity rate in Sullivan County. Almost 6% of all test cases were positive yesterday. So as we sit tonight, the 7-day positivity rate of COVID in Sullivan County is around 3.6 or 3.7%. So that number has crept back up over the past several days. That number is important because that is what the state uses in part to define its microclusters. So some late breaking news this afternoon. Several locales in Orange County were identified as yellow zone microclusters, Newburgh, Middletown, and Highland Falls, and that's in addition to Monroe. What a yellow microcluster zone would require of schools is that 20% of a school's in-person students and staff are tested for COVID over a 2-week period. And if a school was not able to commit to that or chose not to commit to that, then that school would have to go to remote learning. So this has happened in some places and not others. We have seen places around the state where there's been a positive trend where schools have done that testing and the rates at the school site are lower than what the public average is, most notably in Monroe County. However, yesterday or today, Orange County school districts opted to close all schools from the end of the Thanksgiving break, which is November 30th, through December 14th. Having not spoken with any of those superintendents, we suspect that some of that is because of the potential for community spread over the Thanksgiving break. And some of that might be in response to becoming a yellow cluster zone and not being able to appropriately do the testing that goes along with it. I don't know. I haven't studied any websites from those school districts yet. We have been assured or told that Sullivan County Public Health and Garnet Health have secured about 5,000 test kits and would be able to provide the human resources to administer those test kits should a school in Sullivan County fall into a yellow zone. So as we sit right now, that is something that I am weighing heavily in terms of, should we have schools fall into a yellow zone, what our response is. If that happens, I will be in close contact, not only with the board, but also with our administrators and most notably Ms. McGraw, to determine next steps and determine, what is possible, what is appropriate, and what would be the best way forward in terms of educating our students. And we really have to take into consideration the amount of administrative lift on what happens when we have positive cases or symptomatic individuals and what is required of administrators, teachers, nurses, and other staff when those things happen. And if we were to become a yellow zone, what that would indicate is that there's community spread. The 7-day infection rate is at 3.5% or higher for 10 consecutive days. It's telling us that things are moving in the wrong direction in terms of infection rates. As people move indoors, as the holiday season is upon us, it's probably not surprising that that is happening. I did send out a community letter late last week asking people to be vigilant during this season. And, we're asking people to really think carefully about, if they are sick or their children are sick, stay home, seek medical treatment, get tested, wear face coverings. And being around 3 elementary schools today, I saw a lot of, face coverings. I saw a lot of social distancing. I saw people doing what they were supposed to do, students and staff alike. And I saw, and several staff members approached me and were very grateful that we were able to continue to provide in-person instruction for our students. So it is not that's not an easy thing to pull off, and I'm very grateful for our staff. And many of you mentioned the teachers before and what they did during the conference days. It's what they do every day. It's what our nurses do every day, our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers, our custodians and cleaners, our administrators, to keep this machine going. And I'm very grateful for that. But if our numbers continue to rise, there will have to be some serious consideration about what we're able to pull off and keep everyone healthy and safe within our schools. So stay tuned. If any decision is made or developments happen, they will be communicated quickly and responsibly, most notably on our website and social media outlets. But I take my information from the New York State Department of Health. So if you follow what gets put up on that website, one can see where I'm heading to.
Are there any questions from anybody with regard to that? Ms. Greco?
Regarding the type of test, are we talking about the mouth pool swab testing or the actual individual nasal test?
It's the rapid test that I don't know what that would, I mean, I could look it up and get you more information on that, but it can only be administered by a licensed technician.
Okay, so we're talking about the nasal test then.
Okay. Yeah, so it is, a trained individual, and my understanding right now is that Garnet Health would be willing to provide the personnel to do that. We can't do that because we would have to train our staff to do it. And then that would pull nurses away from doing what they're doing right now, which is pretty intensive work as is. So, but again, if we get to that point, that is a conversation I would have with Sullivan County Public Health and Garnet Health about whether or not this can be done.
Okay. Any other questions? Ms. Holmes?
So would we have to pay for the test kits and for the staff?
I don't believe so. My understanding, in terms of the kits, New York State Department of Health has said they would provide the kits. In terms of the human resources, manpower administering them, that has yet to be determined. So that could be part of the calculus as well.
Okay. Ms. Cologne?
It's not really a question, just a comment. I know that the Monticello High School has introduced a new nurse, and I was very lucky to meet her yesterday morning during our pandemic planning committee meeting on Teams. And I do want to say, like, on behalf of the students, that even if we are, especially because I live in a household with younger siblings and my elderly grandparents, I completely understand, and I know a lot of students completely understand like what's going on. And I just want to make sure that everyone knows that like the students are also trying to stay as up to date with everything as possible and be as understanding and patient with the teachers. And this is kind of the time where our community really bands together. And even though it's really like hard and everyone wants to be in school, I just, on behalf of the students, we support anything just to keep us safe.
Thank you, Kayla, and we appreciate that, and we appreciate the patience of all students and what you're doing too.
So Kayla, I've said this before, and now I'll say it publicly so that people hear. As you get to be, old like I am, you wonder what's going to be for our future. And I'm not worried because I just heard what you had to say. You are a great leader. You represent your student body extremely well. We are proud to have you on this board with us. But if that's what our future holds, then there's a lot of looking up that we've got to start doing. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that, because not only did this board need to hear that, but the teachers who are watching, the custodians that are watching, the nurses that are watching, the secretaries that are watching, the administrators that are watching, the bus drivers that are watching, the parents that are watching, whomever is seeing this, the community members, knowing that the students are taking this seriously and that we're actually doing our best to keep everybody safe. And if everybody chips in and does what they're supposed to do, it's not a loss of right. It's making sure that we're taking care of each other, and that's what builds community. So thank you for sharing that so much. We very much appreciate that. Wow, I can retire. It's official. I can really retire. I'm so excited. Thank you for that. Anything else on your docket with regard to that, Dr. Evans, on the path forward?
Just one other thing to clarify for, attendees who are interested in this. Again, as I mentioned before, Orange County Schools went on a hiatus, remote learning only, for the 2-week period after Thanksgiving. So they're all remote from November 30th through December 14th. That was based upon a recommendation from their county's Director of Public Health Services. They have higher rates in Orange County of COVID positivity. And it was her recommendation to superintendents to do that out of an abundance of caution to prevent spread. That has been discussed at our level as well. And what my determination and my colleagues around the county is, let's try to continue what we're doing and respond accordingly. So if in the event we come back from Thanksgiving break and we're getting symptomatic individuals and COVID positive individuals, then if we have to make the switch to remote learning, we will. But after consulting with Nancy McGraw of Sutherland County Public Health Services, she did not feel that our local numbers warranted that preventative, preemptive measure. So we are going to, at this time, it being November 19th, our intentions are to reopen schools on November 30th after the Thanksgiving holiday. We're asking people to be responsible and vigilant over the holiday season. And if they come back on Monday morning, before Monday morning, they're not feeling well, to stay home and to get medical attention. But do stay tuned. It is something we're watching carefully.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Moving on, we have upcoming events, which you have the information there for. You also have the updated BOCES board meeting calendar came in, so that's been posted. So you have that information. You've got the community events that are going on. You've got something from Bethel Woods that is taking place. And again, Kayla did share with us about the ecumenical dinner, the Thanksgiving dinner that is coming up this weekend. Questions and comments from the public, once again, because we don't have a way immediately to get you that information because our clerk is not with us this evening. If you do have any questions, we will get back to you as per our policy, and we will make sure that all of that information is posted within our correspondence at our next meeting so that everybody knows what questions may have been asked. And you can do that by reaching out to our clerk at jmontes, JMONTES at k12mcsd.net. And we will answer the questions in between. So thank you very much. Moving on from there, superintendent's update and information, Dr. Evans.
Thank you, Ms. Oristano. James. So just a couple brief updates on physical matters in the state of New York, because in addition to being in a pandemic, we're also in some pretty dire economic times. I mentioned at the last board meeting that the state education department was withholding transportation aid for transportation that was done back in the spring during the closure. They did provide the field with a detailed memo that said the way the statute reads, they're prevented from doing so. So in response to that, our local BOCES superintendent, Dr. Dufour, wrote advocacy letters on behalf of all districts in the county to Assemblywoman Gunther and Senator Metzger, seeking legal relief or legislative relief on that transportation aid. And that's been happening around the state, and the State Educational Conference Board, which is kind of a collective of NYSUT, SANES, NISCUS, NISBA, ASBO, all these different educator associations in the state, has issued a joint statement advocating for that transportation aid as well. So fingers crossed there. That same Educational Conference Board published a fact sheet, The State of School Aid in Extraordinary Times. And I've shared that with the board. This document details how devastating and disruptive reductions in state aid for schools would be next year should there be additional state aid cuts on top of any withholding that might happen this year. So it highlights, already that this year they might be withholding $1 billion and more so next year. However, very recently, the state comptroller, Thomas DiNapoli, has come out and issued statements that say things might not be as dire as what's coming out of the governor's office. For example, he's a bit more optimistic about federal relief for this current year. And he's also optimistic that the projections on losses in sales tax revenue are not going to be as deep as what the governor's budget office is forecasting. And his rationale behind that is, yes, indeed, all these stores and restaurants have been closed and people aren't going out as much, but people are also shopping online. And that the state of New York had taken steps over the past couple of years to make its sales tax collection on online purchases more robust. So he's expecting some loss, but not as much as what the governor's office is projecting. So stay tuned on that. And I would also ask that tonight, Ms. Fela is going to be presenting the budget calendar for adoption. Ms. Fela and I would like to convene the first meeting of the board's budget committee in late January, once the governor has delivered his initial proposal for the 21-22 fiscal year. So we don't have a date for you yet, but probably at the first meeting in January, if not sooner, we might ask you for a date in late January to meet. And I don't have that committee membership at my fingertips, but I can send an email out to the committee to that effect.
I believe it was Mr. Crumley, Ms. Jersey, myself, and I think that was it.
Okay.
I think it was those three. If there, we'll go back in the minutes and double check. Does anyone else recall sign? I think it was three of us.
Yeah, it was three, no more than four, certainly, but
Right.
I can get an email out to the group to that effect.
Yeah, but those were three that I remember. I don't recall if there was somebody else. Those were three.
A very brief policy update. We had the first reading of those three policies. There are four more policies that we are considering that are consistent with equity, diversity, and inclusion, and supported by the New York State School Boards Association, as well as the New York State Council of School Superintendents, the same webinar that was referenced earlier tonight. The policy committee is meeting again on December 10th to do a deeper dive into those policies. I would ask that members of that committee, if you have comments or feedback or suggestions on those policies, that you email them to the group prior to that meeting, or we can discuss them at the meeting, whatever your pleasure is. And then lastly, some recognitions. Tuesday, November 17th was School-Related Professionals Day in New York State. We posted some pictures online on our social media outlets and are very grateful for everything that they've done during this pandemic. They have stepped forward, have been willing to seek some changes in their working hours and work commitments to make sure we're able to keep our schools open and operational during this pandemic. So a very heartfelt thanks to all the work that they do. And then lastly, Ms. Brenda Sawalski, high school art teacher, is being recognized by the New York State Art Teachers Alliance, Region 7, as the Teacher of the Year for the 2019-20 school year. And she'll be recognized by her peers at a coffee conference on Sunday morning at 8:30. That link has been shared with the board, and the board can find it in their upcoming events section that we just passed over. So thank you, Ms. Sawalski, for all that you do. Congratulations, well deserved, and look forward to hopefully seeing you Sunday morning. That's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. Evans? Okay, Dr. Evans, would you please share with the board also the bill that is now on the governor's desk?
Yes, so That was, my understanding is that has been on the governor's desk for a while, but you will remember that the district is awaiting relief on I guess, how do I put this? A clerical error that was made back in 2012 relative to building aid. So the state is threatening to withhold about $1.9 million in building aid. Last year, our state representatives, Assemblywoman Gunther and Senator Metzger, lobbied heavily to have a relief bill passed, sponsored a relief bill, got it passed in the legislature. It went to the governor. He did not act on it. However, he has acted on other districts getting said relief. That bill, once again, earlier in the summer, Assemblywoman Gunther and Senator Metzger got it passed through their houses, and it is again on the governor's desk. The New York State School Boards Association just issued another letter of support reminding the governor that it's there and asking him to act on it. I have reached out to the New York State Council of School Superintendents for similar advocacy. But if anyone has connections with the governor or is willing to write a letter of advocacy for us to get that bill passed, I strongly encourage them to do so. But, again, fingers crossed that the governor will sign that bill into law for building aid relief.
Yes. And when I received the notification, I also reached back out to Assemblywoman Gunther and to Senator Metzger. And first of all, thank them for getting it on his desk yet again. And they are continuing their advocacy on their end. They had gotten the notification as well, and they are making their inroads as much as possible on our behalf. So on behalf of the board, we thank them for their hard work. And continued support of education throughout New York State, but specific to our school district. So thank you, Dr. Evans. Enrollment report. Any questions around that for Dr. Evans? Are we good? Okay, so in case you missed it, we are down 1 student from last year as of our bed state, just in case you missed that. So where we were losing 30 students a year, 1. And we know that there are students coming in because we know that people are coming up here and starting to buy houses up here. So there you go. There has been no loss. There's been gain. So just to point that out to you. Moving on from there, Ms. Sala, your report.
Okay, so tonight you have September's budget status and revenue status reports, the claims auditor report, and the school lunch profit and loss. And I also have the 2021-2022 budget calendar for the board to adopt. And that's it.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Sala? Okay, moving on from there, Dr. Oler Marks, your report, please.
Sure. So I have the changing cohort status report. So if you take a look at that, it's from the first day of school, September 14th, 2020. And then the latest that we had on November 2nd, 2020. Overall, there's not a significant change in cohort status as a district. You'll notice that there's a slight increase in students coming in at Chase Elementary. That at Cook and KLR, there's a relatively stable number, but what the graphs do not reflect is the movement that has happened. So while the overall numbers remain stable, there has been a good deal of movement in and out of the various cohorts, requiring the principals and the teachers to be incredibly fluid and flexible. At the middle school, you'll see that we have had a slight increase of students who have moved to full remote. And then at the high school, you'll see that we have a greater number of students that have moved to full remote since September 14th. Does anyone have any questions around that?
Do we know in the high school, are they moving because of the pandemic or is it because they have no live instruction?
One of the things that we have asked the principals to do as part of the pandemic committees is to survey all of the stakeholders so that we can gain some more information. So I can give you information once we have collected all of that.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Olemarks. And again, there's a lot of stuff going on in the buildings, and we thank everybody who's in those buildings, but we have an incredible central administration team, and we are very grateful to have you during this time. The three of you are working so well together, and we appreciate everything that it is that you are doing. And with that said, Mr. Crumley.
I move that we take action items T1 through T11 as a group.
A second on that, Mr. Groden. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered, Mr. Crumley.
I move that we approve action items T1 through T11 as a group.
A second on that, Ms. Greco. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Thank you very much. Moving on from there, correspondence. The information that we need is there. Items in the Democrat and the Record. Again, we thank the local papers for doing a great job in covering us, but we also want to make sure that we are, and the good things that are going on. But we also want to take this opportunity to again thank Courtney Bonfante, who does a great job of getting that stuff out there so that they are aware of it. So I thank you very much on all of that. So moving on from there, questions and comments from the public. Again, if there are any questions, jmontes, JMONTES @k12mcsd.net. And we will get back to you as soon as possible with regard to that, actually within the 48 hours that you write it to us. And it will be available on our next set of minutes for everybody to see what questions were raised. And with that said, I do just want to take the opportunity on behalf of the entire school board to wish all, not only faculty, staff, our students, but our parents, our community, and all of our stakeholders a very happy, safe, and healthy Thanksgiving. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn made by Mr. Groden, seconded by Ms. Jersey. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Nicely done. It's before 8:30. Have a good night, everybody. A happy holiday. And remember, our meeting is the second week in December. We only have one meeting in December. It's not the first week of December. So we will see you back here then. Thank you very much. And everyone